Why would alien observers find human friendship more unsettling than straightforward revenge? The answer lies in psychological endurance that extends far beyond physical capabilities. Marcus demonstrates how human persistence predation applies to social relationships and mentorship. With terrifying effectiveness, friendship represents long-term engagement that revenge simply cannot match in duration or psychological impact. Where violence creates a clear endpoint, injuries healed, debts paid, friendship establishes ongoing connections that continue evolving. This sustained engagement creates deeper transformation than any brief violent encounter could achieve. Marcus approaches his relationship with Gilox as calculated strategic investment rather than emotional connection. Every interaction serves the larger purpose of transformation, each conversation building toward specific developmental goals. This systematic approach demonstrates that human friendship often involves deliberate long-term planning. This persistence makes human relationships uniquely dangerous because they never truly conclude. Unlike transactions that end with resolution, friendships continue influencing both parties indefinitely. The alien cadets fear this ongoing psychological influence more than temporary violence because it represents continuous evaluation and potential redirection. The aliens recognize they're constantly being observed and shaped through these relationships. Marcus's friendship means Gilox remains under constant psychological influence, his development guided toward specific outcomes. This continuous state of being mentored proves more frightening than any singular punishment. Human endurance capability translates into psychological domains with formidable results. Our capacity for sustained engagement allows relationships to evolve over extended periods, creating changes that feel organic, yet serve strategic purposes. This persistence becomes our most effective tool in interspecies psychology. The resolution becomes clear as observers recognize friendship's power. Human connections create obligations and dependencies that violence cannot achieve. These relationships build networks of influence that extend far beyond immediate circumstances, creating lasting impact through steady psychological pressure. This persistent nature of human friendship now defines our approach to galactic relations. Other species learn that our relationships involve long-term investment rather than short-term transactions. They recognize that human connections continue influencing behavior long after conflicts resolve. The classroom witnesses how psychological endurance creates more effective change than forceful intervention. Marcus's steady guidance produces sustainable transformation, where punishment might only create temporary compliance. This approach demonstrates that lasting change requires patience and consistent engagement. Alien fear stems from understanding that human friendship represents unfinished business. Where revenge concludes situations, friendship maintains open-ended possibilities for continued influence. This uncertainty creates more psychological discomfort than clearly defined hostility ever could. Human persistence in relationships reflects our evolutionary background applied to social contexts. Just as our ancestors tracked prey across continents, we maintain psychological engagement across extended time frames. This endurance capability makes us uniquely formidable in interspecies interactions. The transition occurs as observers comprehend the strategic nature of human connections. Friendship becomes recognized as a sophisticated psychological tool, rather than simple emotional bonding. This understanding changes how aliens interpret and respond to human relationship offers. This psychological persistence ultimately redefines how the galaxy perceives human social behavior. What appears as simple friendliness often serves deeper strategic purposes that extend far beyond surface interactions. The realization creates both caution and curiosity about human motivations. Human friendship emerges as more feared than violence, precisely because of its persistent nature. The ongoing influence, continuous engagement, and long-term investment create psychological impact that brief conflicts cannot match. This endurance capability represents our most distinctive advantage in galactic relations. This poisoning incident quickly became foundational text in xenopsychology courses across institutions. Galactic educators recognized they had something more valuable than theoretical models, an actual case study demonstrating human psychological strategies in action. The story provides concrete examples of conflict resolution approaches that challenge traditional thinking. Real-world incidents prove more effective for learning than theoretical constructs ever could. Students analyze every aspect of the encounter, From the initial poisoning attempt to the long-term mentorship that followed, they examine how human behavior defies standard galactic expectations while achieving measurable results. Academies specifically study Marcus's methods to understand human persistence, predation, and psychological contexts. His approach demonstrates how strategic patience and consistent engagement can transform adversarial relationships. Students learn to recognize patterns that indicate human strategic thinking versus emotional responses. This curriculum shift represents significant acknowledgement of human strategic superiority in interspecies relations. Educational institutions formally recognize that human methods produce outcomes traditional approaches cannot match. The inclusion of this case study signals acceptance of human psychological strategies as valid field of study. Students discover that human mercy can be more effective than violence in transforming adversaries. They analyze how calculated kindness creates obligations and dependencies that force cannot achieve. The classroom incident serves as perfect template for understanding this counterintuitive approach to conflict resolution. The incident becomes standard template for understanding human behavior in high-stakes scenarios. Instructors use it to demonstrate how humans prioritize long-term gains over short-term satisfaction. Students learn to anticipate human responses that might otherwise seem unpredictable or illogical. Galactic education now incorporates human psychological strategies into standard curriculum. Xenopsychology textbooks include chapters on persistence predation applications in social contexts. Military academies add modules on strategic mercy and transformational conflict resolution. This educational shift ensures future generations understand human approaches to conflict. Cadets graduate with comprehension of human psychological patterns rather than fear of human unpredictability. This knowledge creates more stable foundations for interspecies interactions across all sectors. The story's inclusion in curricula influences how emerging leaders approach diplomacy and conflict. They learn that building capabilities often proves more effective than eliminating threats. This perspective shift opens new possibilities for galactic cooperation and development. Students examine the poisoned water container as symbolic representation of the entire incident. They analyze how physical objects can reinforce psychological lessons more effectively than abstract concepts. This tangible element makes the case study more memorable and impactful. The curriculum shift demonstrates how single events can change entire fields of study. Educational institutions show flexibility in incorporating new understandings into established frameworks. This adaptability itself becomes lesson in responding to new information and perspectives. Future leaders learn to recognize when humans employ strategic kindness versus genuine emotion. They develop skills in analyzing human motivations and anticipating long-term strategies. This comprehension makes interspecies interactions more predictable and productive. The educational integration ensures that human psychological approaches become part of standard galactic knowledge. Students from multiple species now share common understanding of human behavior patterns. This shared knowledge base facilitates better communication and cooperation across species boundaries. This curriculum transformation represents the most significant change in interspecies education in generations. The story of Marcus and Gilox becomes required reading because it demonstrates principles that apply beyond their specific situation. Students learn universal concepts through this particular example. The incident serves as gateway to broader understanding of human psychology. Once students comprehend this case study, they can apply similar analysis to other human behaviors and interactions. The template provides tools for decoding human actions across various contexts. This educational approach ensures that human strategies become subject of study rather than fear. Future generations approach interspecies relations with knowledge rather than apprehension. This shift from anxiety to understanding benefits all species involved in galactic community. What if drinking poison wasn't an act of revenge but the first move in a dangerous game of mentorship? In a classroom full of alien cadets, one human turns a lethal poisoning attempt into a masterclass in psychological warfare. But instead of destroying his attacker, he's building something far more terrifying, a capable rival forged through calculated kindness. Now picture this toxicology classroom at the Galactic Military Academy. 47 cadets from 12 different species watch as Gilox Green Fang adds a colorless liquid to a human's water bottle. The air feels heavy with the weight of what might happen next. This academy represents the most ambitious attempt at interspecies education in galactic history. Every conversation here carries potential consequences that could extend far beyond the classroom. One wrong move could mean diplomatic incidents or worse. Vexar's warning about interspecies programs hangs over the room like a cloud. His belief that these initiatives are fundamentally flawed isn't just theory, it's based on sobering statistics. Nearly 8 out of 10 such programs fail due to biological mismatches and cultural divides that no amount of preparation can fully anticipate. The Zeronian death. Bloom extract in that bottle symbolizes everything alien species find unsettling about humans. It's a substance designed for stealth and certainty, yet Geolox operates under the assumption that human biology follows predictable rules like other species. He expects the clear, violent reaction that would occur with any other cadet in that room. As the liquid mixes with the water, 46 alien cadets brace for impact. Their collective panic isn't just about one human's potential death. It's about the chain reaction that could follow. They've studied human history. They know about our capacity for retaliation. The classroom transforms into a perfect miniature of galactic politics. Trust becomes the most dangerous commodity here, more volatile than any weapon in the Academy's arsenal. Each cadet represents their species' interests and fears. Watching this play out while calculating their own position, Geolox completes his task with cool precision, believing he's executing a predictable outcome. He anticipates the human's violent response, the ensuing chaos, the justification for his actions. The trap is perfectly set according to galactic standards of conflict. But the expected explosion never comes. No shouting, no immediate retaliation, no call for security. The human simply observes the act with calm recognition, then continues with the lesson as if nothing occurred. This deviation from the expected script creates the first major twist. In what should have been a straightforward story of interspecies conflict, the silence that follows feels louder than any outburst could have been. 46 alien cadets remain frozen, their emergency response protocols useless against this unexpected calm. They're waiting for the other shoe to drop, for the human vengeance they've been taught to expect. This moment reveals something fundamental about human nature that the galactic community has failed to understand. We don't follow established patterns of conflict resolution. Our responses don't align with predictable biological or cultural programming. What happens next will challenge everything these cadets thought they knew about interspecies relations. The poisoning attempt should have ended in immediate violence, but humans operate on a different psychological wavelength entirely. Now the alien cadets watch Marcus raise the contaminated water to his lips. They expect immediate convulsions, the classic violent response that follows Zeronian death bloom exposure in most species. Instead, Marcus drinks calmly, then sets the container down with quiet precision. The death bloom extract represents the pinnacle of stealth assassination technology across many systems. It lacks color, odor, and immediate sensory markers that might alert the target. For nearly every species in that room, this substance means certain death within moments of ingestion. Their emergency medical training emphasizes rapid response protocols for exactly this scenario. But Marcus doesn't collapse. He doesn't show distress signals. He simply places the bottle back on the table and turns his attention to Geolox with a thoughtful expression. The alien cadets experience collective biological confusion. Their own nervous systems scream danger, while the human exhibits no physiological distress. Marcus explains the situation with clinical detachment. Human liver enzymes process certain alkaloid compounds differently than most galactic species. Our metabolic pathways break down toxins that would overwhelm other biological systems. This isn't superior biology so much as divergent evolution along a unique chemical pathway. What the aliens cannot immediately comprehend is the cultural dimension of this biological difference. Humans actively seek out chemical experiences that would hospitalize other species. We consume capsaicin-rich foods for pleasure, ingest caffeine and alcohol for their neurological effects, and historically experimented with countless plant compounds for spiritual or recreational purposes. This cultural audacity means humans approach potential toxins with curiosity rather than immediate fear. Our relationship with chemicals exists on a spectrum far broader than simple survival mechanisms. We've built entire culinary traditions around substances that other species would classify as biological weapons. The Zeronian death bloom extract triggers a response pattern the galactic community hasn't documented. Instead of shutdown, human neurochemistry shifts into heightened analytical states under certain toxin exposures. This evolutionary adaptation served our ancestors who needed to identify safe food sources while maintaining cognitive function. Marcus experiences the poison as a clarifying agent rather than a destructive one. His thought processes become more focused, his observational skills sharpen, and his emotional responses dampen in favor of strategic calculation. The alien cadets watch his pupils dilate slightly, his breathing regulate, his posture shift from relaxed to purposefully engaged. This biochemical twist means the assassination attempt has backfired spectacularly. Sci-Fi hasn't eliminated a threat. He's activated a more dangerous version of his target. The human who drank that water now operates with enhanced focus and diminished emotional interference. The classroom atmosphere shifts from anticipatory tension to bewildered apprehension. Cadets who expected to witness violent death now observe something far more unsettling, a human who becomes more formidable when poisoned. Their training manuals contain no protocols for this scenario. This biological revelation sets the stage for what comes next. The aliens feared human violence, but they're about to discover that our calculated responses prove far more unnerving than any outburst of anger could ever be. Why would a human offer friendship to someone who just tried to murder them? This question hangs in the air as Marcus picks up the poisoned water bottle and walks toward Gilax. The alien cadets brace for physical retaliation, their muscles tensed for the violent reaction their training prepared them to expect. Instead, Marcus extends the bottle with a calm expression and asks if Gilax would like a drink. The room enters a state of collective psychological lockup. Every alien mind struggles to process this deviation from established conflict patterns. Their cultural frameworks contain no reference points for this behavior. Where they anticipate rage, they encounter curiosity. Where they expect punishment, they receive an invitation. This apparent friendliness operates as a deliberate strategy rather than genuine emotion. Marcus maintains eye contact without aggression, his body language open but calculated. The warmth in his voice carries no trace of sarcasm or hidden threat, which makes the interaction more unsettling than any overt hostility could be. Strategic kindness proves more effective than aggression in reshaping adversarial relationships. The approach creates cognitive dissonance in the target, forcing them to reconsider their assumptions and expectations. Gilax finds himself responding to questions about his technique and reasoning, engaged in conversation rather than combat. Marcus masks his deeper purpose behind apparent curiosity about Gilax's methods and background. He asks about the poison's origin, the delivery mechanism, the expected outcome. Each question reinforces the bizarre normalcy of their interaction, while gathering valuable intelligence about his would-be assassin. The narrative clearly establishes that destruction isn't the goal here. Marcus isn't attempting to eliminate a threat but to transform it. This represents a fundamental shift in conflict resolution that the galactic community hasn't previously documented or understood. One observer whispers that this constitutes psychological torture, capturing the collective alien confusion perfectly. The prolonged uncertainty, the violation of expectations, the forced engagement with one's attacker. These elements create more distress than any physical confrontation might generate. Friendship emerges as the more dangerous option in interspecies relations. Hostility follows predictable patterns with established countermeasures. This calculated approach creates new rules that leave the alien cadets without defensive protocols or prepared responses. Gilax finds himself discussing toxin delivery systems with the person he just attempted to kill. The conversation flows into academic interests, career aspirations, and even personal background. Marcus listens with genuine interest, making connections between their shared field of study. The resolution becomes clear as the interaction continues. Marcus has chosen a path that rewrites the rulebook on conflict. His mercy carries strategic weight that vengeance could never achieve, creating obligations and opportunities where destruction would only create voids. This offer begins a transformation that redefines mercy as something far more potent than simple forgiveness. It becomes a tool for building rather than breaking, for creating capability rather than eliminating threats. The alien cadets witness the birth of a new approach to interspecies relations. The transition occurs almost imperceptibly. What began as an assassination attempt becomes a mentoring opportunity. Jilox finds himself responding to guidance about improved poisoning techniques, more effective delivery methods, and strategic considerations he hadn't previously contemplated. Marcus demonstrates that the most powerful responses often defy expectations. By choosing engagement over retaliation, he gains influence that violence could never provide. The relationship dynamic shifts from hunter and target to teacher and student, with all the complexity that transformation entails. The classroom watches this unfold with growing fascination. They recognize they're witnessing something unprecedented in galactic diplomacy, a human turning an attack into an alliance through sheer psychological flexibility. The poisoned water bottle stands between them as both weapon and peace offering. This moment establishes that human conflict resolution doesn't follow predictable patterns. Our capacity for recalculating situations and choosing unconventional responses creates advantages that more rigid psychological frameworks cannot match. The aliens learn that humanity's greatest strength lies in our adaptive thinking. The offer of friendship after attempted murder creates a bond that punishment could never achieve. Jilox becomes invested in the relationship, engaged in the process, and strangely committed to the human's survival. This psychological shift represents the true victory in this encounter. What makes humans so terrifying to other species isn't our strength or speed, it's our persistence. This concept explains everything about Marcus's reaction to being poisoned. Galactic classification systems label humans as persistence predators, a category that sounds simple but carries deep implications. That label refers to our ancient hunting strategy, where early humans would track prey across vast distances for days or weeks. Unlike predators that rely on sudden bursts of speed or power, humans would simply follow until the target collapsed from exhaustion. The prey might be faster initially, but humans would maintain steady pursuit when others would give up. This hunting method requires more than physical endurance. It demands psychological stamina and strategic patience that most species never develop. The hunter must read tracks, anticipate movements, and conserve energy while maintaining constant pressure. Success comes from outlasting rather than overpowering. Human physiology supports this approach through unique thermal regulation and efficient energy use. Our ancestors could run for hours in conditions that would overwhelm other species. Sweating allows continuous activity while many predators must stop to cool down. This biological advantage translated into social and psychological domains over millennia. Marcus applies the same persistent approach to Jilox. Instead of immediate retaliation, he chooses relentless guidance. The mercy he shows isn't weakness, it's strategic engagement stretched over time. He understands that transformation requires sustained effort, rather than single actions. This persistence predation psychology explains why humans often prefer what observers call the mercy option. Compassion becomes strategic weaponry when applied with patience. Forgiveness creates opportunities for influence that destruction cannot achieve. The alien cadets watch Marcus invest time and energy into someone who tried to kill him. The classroom witnesses human persistence in real time. Marcus doesn't seek quick resolution or immediate justice. He begins a process of mentoring that will continue for weeks, applying steady pressure through consistent engagement. Each interaction builds on the previous one, creating gradual change. Jilox finds himself caught in this persistent attention. The human doesn't confront or attack, but simply remains present, offering guidance and asking questions. This constant engagement becomes more unnerving than any brief violent encounter could be. There's no escape from the human's focus. Human mercy emerges as the ultimate expression of this persistence predation mindset. It represents long-term strategic thinking applied to social relationships. Destruction ends possibilities while mercy creates ongoing opportunities for influence and transformation. The alien cadets begin to understand that human superiority lies in this capacity for sustained engagement. We don't need to be stronger or faster, we simply outlast. Our psychological endurance allows us to wait, observe, and act when the time is right rather than when emotions demand. This predatory patience now shapes the mentoring approach that follows the poisoning attempt. Marcus will apply the same relentless focus to Jilox's education that his ancestors applied to tracking prey across continents. The outcome becomes inevitable through cumulative pressure rather than single actions. The classroom watches as human persistence transforms an assassination attempt into a mentorship program. They witness how our evolutionary background influences our approach to conflict and relationship building. What seems like mercy is actually strategy stretched across time. Marcus chooses the toxicology lab for their next meeting. He prepares a demonstration using simulated Rigelian nerve agent and its Theta-7 countermeasure. The setup appears routine, another academy exercise in emergency response protocols. Shilox approaches with cautious curiosity, unsure what to expect from this human who should be dead. The simulation begins with Shilox experiencing sudden paralysis from the nerve agent simulator. His body locks into position, muscles freezing while his mind remains fully aware. The terror of complete physical helplessness washes over him. Exactly the response Marcus anticipated when designing this lesson. Marcus describes the physiological effects with clinical precision as Shilox remains immobilized. He details the neurotransmitter blockage, the muscle response patterns, the gradual respiratory distress that would occur in actual poisoning. His voice remains calm and educational, devoid of emotional charge despite the traumatic nature of the experience. This deliberate teaching method demonstrates how humans blend care with calculated psychological pressure. The line between cruelty and kindness becomes intentionally blurred. Marcus maintains eye contact while explaining how the victim would experience suffocation while conscious, creating empathy through direct experience rather than theoretical discussion. Simulated trauma proves more effective than punishment for behavioral modification. The temporary paralysis creates lasting emotional impact without physical harm. Shilox experiences the terror his own poison would have caused, but within a controlled environment where safety remains assured throughout the process. Marcus administers the Theta-7 countermeasure with gentle professionalism. His assurance that improvement will come momentarily carries both comfort and psychological weight. The injection brings immediate relief from paralysis, creating a powerful association between the human's actions and the cessation of suffering. This moment of relief serves as intentional conditioning. Shilox learns to associate Marcus with safety and resolution after experiencing distress initiated by that same human. The relationship dynamic shifts from attacker-target to controller-protector, establishing patterns that will define their future interactions. The rehearsal establishes education as the primary vehicle for transformation. Marcus uses poison and its antidote as teaching tools rather than weapons. Each component of the experience, the fear, the relief, the explanation, contributes to reshaping Shilox's understanding of conflict and consequence. Shilox emerges from the experience changed. The simulated poisoning creates deeper understanding than any lecture or punishment could achieve. He now comprehends the human perspective on multiple levels: the physical experience of poisoning, the psychological impact, and the strategic thinking behind using education as response. This practical lesson marks the true beginning of his metamorphosis. The assassin mentality gives way to student curiosity. Shilox starts asking questions about human biochemistry, about toxin development, about countermeasure design. His engagement shifts from hostile to scholarly, from destructive to constructive. The classroom observers witness this transformation with growing unease. They recognize that Marcus has achieved something more profound than revenge. He hasn't just prevented future attacks, he's created a willing participant in his own re-education. The poisoned student becomes eager to learn from the teacher he tried to eliminate. This approach to conflict resolution demonstrates human creativity in turning threats into opportunities. The toxicology practical becomes foundation for everything that follows, establishing that education can transform even the most adversarial relationships when applied with strategic patience and psychological insight. Marcus shifts his approach from the toxicology lab to the classroom, specifically targeting orbital mechanics. This complex subject requires spatial reasoning and mathematical precision that challenge even advanced students. Shilox initially struggles with the calculations, his frustration mounting as equations fail to resolve correctly. The human becomes his study partner, sitting beside him during independent work periods. Marcus doesn't provide answers but guides through questions that lead to self-discovery. He points out where assumptions might be flawed or where alternative approaches could yield better results. This method builds problem-solving skills rather than creating dependence. Other students watch this development with growing concern. They recognize that Shilox represents a significant political family in his home system. His transformation from ineffective assassin to capable student shifts power dynamics in the classroom. The rival heir becomes increasingly formidable under human guidance. Marcus maintains careful distance even while offering assistance. His friendliness serves as strategic instrument rather than emotional connection. He never shares personal information or seeks companionship outside academic contexts. This calculated approach maintains psychological pressure while building capability. The mentorship expands beyond orbital mechanics into other subjects. They study tactical analysis together, review historical conflicts, and practice negotiation simulations. Xilox develops confidence through repeated success in these academic challenges. His capabilities grow noticeably each week. This guided development approach proves more effective than punishment for reshaping adversarial relationships. The consistent positive reinforcement of correct answers and improved performance creates new behavioral patterns. Xilox begins associating human interaction with personal growth rather than conflict. Their alliance extends into shared academic life without becoming personal friendship. They eat meals together in the cafeteria, discussing coursework and theoretical concepts. They attend lectures side by side, comparing notes and observations. This creates dependency through constant professional engagement. Pipara voices the discomfort felt by many observers when she says she can't watch this anymore. Her distress reflects the collective unease about what this transformation means. They witness the creation of something unpredictable and potentially dangerous through human intervention. The mentorship becomes the primary vehicle for psychological transformation. Structured guidance replaces the expected punishment, creating fundamental change in both individuals. Xilox develops skills and confidence while Marcus demonstrates human conflict resolution methods. This academic partnership establishes foundations for what comes next. The orbital mechanics and tactical studies provide essential background for military strategy development. Xilox gains theoretical knowledge that will soon face practical testing. The classroom dynamic shifts as other students adjust to this new reality. Some attempt to emulate the human's methods with limited success. Others maintain distance, uncertain how to interact with the transformed cadet. The entire social structure reorganizes around this unusual relationship. Marcus continues applying steady pressure through academic challenges. He identifies weaknesses in Xilox's understanding and creates exercises to address them. The progress remains visible to everyone, creating both admiration and concern among observers. The resolution becomes clear through consistent demonstration. Mentorship transforms potential enemies into capable allies when applied with strategic patience. The human approach focuses on building rather than breaking, creating value where others see only threats. This academic foundation now sets the stage for practical application. The orbital mechanics calculations and tactical analyses prepare Xilox for the strategic challenges ahead. The classroom lessons become building blocks for battlefield decisions. The strategic warfare classroom becomes the testing ground for Xilox's transformation. The Centauri Academy simulation presents a complex defensive scenario that has stumped cadets for generations. Xilox studies the tactical display with focused intensity, his approach showing clear human influence in both methodology and mindset. Marcus observes from the periphery, offering guidance through carefully framed questions rather than direct instructions. When Xilox proposes an unconventional flanking maneuver that defies standard galactic doctrine, Marcus responds with genuine appreciation for the creative thinking. His acknowledgement that Xilox is thinking outside established parameters builds confidence without diminishing the cadet's ownership of the idea. The simulation begins with multiple red markers representing enemy forces, advancing toward a theoretical planetary defense position. Standard doctrine calls for layered defensive perimeters and calculated retreats to secondary positions. Xilox instead proposes using the enemy's momentum against them, creating funnel points that would collapse their advance from within. Authentic praise combined with strategic questioning accelerates the development process significantly. Marcus asks about potential countermeasures, about supply line vulnerabilities, about communication breakdown scenarios. Each question pushes Xilox to refine his plan while maintaining the innovative core concept. The dialogue demonstrates how human mentorship focuses on strengthening existing ideas rather than replacing them. The resulting defense strategy achieves total victory in 47 minutes, a record that stands 30% faster than previous solutions. The simulation shows enemy forces completely neutralized with minimal defensive losses. Observers watch in silence as the tactical display confirms the overwhelming success of the unconventional approach. Shylock begins describing the strategy as his own creation during the post-exercise analysis. He explains the decision points and tactical reasoning with growing confidence. Marcus consistently supports this narrative, offering validation and occasional clarifying points rather than claiming credit for the mentoring process. This reinforcement solidifies the cadet's transformation from follower to strategic thinker. The demonstration convinces both instructors and fellow cadets that something unprecedented is occurring. They witness not just improved performance but fundamental cognitive restructuring. Shylock demonstrates battlefield-ready thinking that combines his species' natural tendencies with human strategic flexibility. Military strategy becomes the proving ground for human mentorship effectiveness. The simulation victory provides concrete evidence that the approach produces tangible results under pressure. The classroom transitions from skeptical observation to serious study of the methods behind this transformation. This victory demonstrates that human guidance can create superior, strategic thinkers through patient development, rather than aggressive correction. The focus on building existing strengths while addressing weaknesses produces more organic growth than traditional instructional methods. Shylock emerges from the exercise not as a student repeating lessons, but as a strategist applying learned principles creatively. The transformation becomes particularly evident during the debriefing session. Shylock answers challenging questions about his tactical choices with confidence and clarity. He references historical precedents, calculates risk probabilities, and defends his unconventional approach with logical rigor. The instructors note the sophistication of his reasoning, which far exceeds typical cadet performance. Marcus maintains his supportive role throughout the analysis, intervening only to provide context or clarification when requested. His deliberate stepping back allows Shylock to fully own the success while still benefiting from the human's guidance when needed. This balanced approach demonstrates the effectiveness of strategic mentorship over direct instruction. The classroom atmosphere shifts from curiosity to serious consideration of human educational methods. Cadets who previously viewed Marcus with suspicion now observe his techniques with professional interest. They recognize that his approach produces results that traditional galactic pedagogy cannot match. Vexar gives voice to the terrifying realization that's been building in the classroom. The human isn't trying to destroy Shylock. He's actively improving him. This statement hangs in the air, shifting the entire perspective on Marcus's actions from strange to strategically frightening. The observers recognize a deeper pattern in what they initially mistook for mercy. They see Marcus's approach as a form of power that shapes future capabilities rather than eliminating present threats. This comprehension transforms their understanding from a simple revenge narrative into something far more complex, a cautionary tale about how human empathy can function as strategic manipulation. Understanding, manipulative kindness creates more psychological distress than witnessing obvious malice ever could. The alien cadets realize that destruction provides closure and clear endpoints, while this transformation offers no such resolution. They're watching someone being rebuilt according to human design principles, and the open-ended nature of this process generates persistent unease. Marcus's mercy functions as strategic weaponry with delayed effects. Rather than causing immediate harm, it reshapes Shylock's approach to problem-solving, builds his confidence, and develops his competencies. The observers grasp that this approach creates long-term implications that extend far beyond the classroom or even their academy. Years. The growing horror comes from witnessing transformation rather than destruction. They see Shylock becoming more capable, more strategic, and more human in his thinking patterns. This metamorphosis suggests that the real victory isn't in defeating enemies, but in remaking them according to one's own design principles. This psychological torture stems from the dawning comprehension of human motivations. The aliens begin to understand that human actions can be driven by complex, long-term goals rather than immediate emotional responses. They recognize that Marcus operates on a different timescale, with strategic patience that most species find unnerving. The resolution becomes clear as the observers shift their perception of human conflict resolution. Understanding why humans act becomes more frightening than witnessing what they do. The knowledge that kindness can be weaponized, that mercy can be calculated, and that improvement can serve strategic purposes, challenges fundamental assumptions about interspecies relations. This comprehension fundamentally alters how the galaxy perceives human approaches to conflict. Where they previously saw straightforward aggression or predictable retaliation, they now recognize layered strategies and long-term planning. The observers begin to question whether any human action is as simple as it appears on the surface. The classroom dynamic changes as this understanding spreads. Cadets start analyzing their own interactions with humans through this new lens. They question whether apparent friendships might serve strategic purposes, whether helpfulness might conceal deeper calculations. This skepticism creates both caution and curiosity about human behavior. The transition occurs naturally from fear of human violence to respect for human strategy. The aliens begin to see that our superiority might lie in creative rather than destructive capabilities. They recognize that building up a rival requires more sophistication than simply eliminating one. This shift in perception opens new possibilities for interspecies relations. The observers start considering how human approaches might be studied and understood, rather than simply feared. They recognize that strategic kindness might offer advantages that traditional conflict resolution methods cannot match. The horror of understanding gives way to professional curiosity. The alien cadets begin documenting Marcus's methods, analyzing his techniques, and discussing the implications for galactic diplomacy. They transform their fear into study material, their apprehension into academic interest. This comprehension marks a turning point in how the galaxy will interact with humanity moving forward. The realization that human mercy can be strategic rather than emotional changes the rules of engagement across species boundaries. It suggests that our most dangerous weapon might be our capacity to improve others according to our design. Human mercy becomes more dangerous than violence when applied with strategic precision. Forgiveness transforms from perceived weakness into galactic power when wielded with calculation rather than emotion. Marcus demonstrates this through his approach to Zealox, showing that mercy can be deployed with tactical accuracy for long-term advantage. Strategic forgiveness creates alliances that punitive measures cannot achieve. This approach builds relationships on foundations of obligation and mutual growth, rather than fear or submission. Where violence ends possibilities, mercy opens new pathways for influence and cooperation that extend far beyond immediate conflicts. This application of mercy functions as psychological persistence predation. It represents the same endurance-based strategy humans used in physical hunting, now applied to social and diplomatic domains. The approach requires patience, observation, and consistent pressure over time rather than sudden explosive actions. Human superiority manifests through this capacity to elevate rivals strategically. Marcus doesn't seek to dominate Zealox but to develop his capabilities in directions that serve broader strategic goals. This creative approach to power demonstrates that building up can be more effective than breaking down. The galaxy begins to understand that human mercy isn't emotional weakness, but calculated long-term strategy. This comprehension shifts how species perceive human actions and motivations. What once appeared as inexplicable kindness now reveals itself as sophisticated psychological engagement. This approach creates dependencies and obligations that pure violence could never achieve. Zealox becomes invested in the relationship, committed to the process, and psychologically bound to the human who showed him mercy. These connections prove more durable than those formed through fear or force. Strategic mercy becomes humanity's most formidable weapon in interspecies relations precisely because it doesn't appear weaponized. Its effectiveness lies in its apparent generosity, its disguise as simple kindness masking sophisticated psychological manipulation. The galaxy learns that human actions often serve multiple layers of purpose. This weaponized kindness now propels Zealox toward advanced training opportunities. The mentorship has transformed him from potential threat into strategic investment. His development serves both his personal growth and broader human interests in galactic stability and cooperation. The approach demonstrates that human conflict resolution focuses on transformation rather than elimination. By choosing to improve rather than destroy, humans create networks of capable allies where others might create power vacuums or resentful subordinates. This methodology offers more sustainable outcomes. Mercy as strategy requires exceptional psychological insight and emotional control. Humans must understand their targets thoroughly enough to identify development opportunities and patient enough to see the process through. This combination of analysis and endurance proves uniquely human. The galactic community observes how this strategic mercy creates ripple effects beyond the immediate relationship. Other cadets begin reconsidering their approaches to conflict. Instructors adjust their teaching methods, and the entire academy culture shifts toward more creative problem-solving. This weaponized kindness represents humanity's most sophisticated export to the galaxy. It offers a template for interspecies relations based on mutual improvement rather than dominance. The approach demonstrates that true power lies in building capabilities rather than demonstrating force. The transition occurs naturally from theoretical concept to practical application. Jilox's advancement proves the effectiveness of the approach, creating a living example that others can study and emulate. His transformation becomes the best argument for human methods. Strategic mercy ultimately redefines what strength means in galactic relations. It shows that the ability to create value from conflict situations represents the highest form of power. Humanity demonstrates that our greatest advantage lies in turning threats into opportunities through calculated compassion. Marcus signs the recommendation form with 3 professors adding their endorsements. Jilox receives advancement into the prestigious military command program, a result that seemed impossible months earlier. This practical demonstration shows how effective mentorship can elevate talent into leadership positions regardless of species or background. The recommendation process itself becomes part of the strategy. Marcus ensures Jilox understands this isn't charity, but earned advancement. The professor's support reflects genuine recognition of the cadet's transformation, not merely deference to human influence. This combination creates legitimate meritocracy through strategic kindness. His parting words carry deliberate weight. When Marcus mentions his belief that Jilox will accomplish great things, he isn't offering empty encouragement. This statement functions as strategic reinforcement of the transformation already achieved. Research confirms that authentic belief in potential often becomes self-fulfilling prophecy in mentoring relationships. This endorsement solidifies Marcus's reputation as both strategist and seemingly unbeatable ally across species boundaries. Other cadets observe how human support can fast-track careers while maintaining rigorous standards. The approach demonstrates that kindness and high expectations can coexist effectively. The recommendation represents the culmination of the psychological transformation process. Jilox enters advanced training, not as the arrogant heir who attempted assassination, but as a capable student ready for leadership challenges. His development validates the entire experiment in calculated mentorship. This moment proves that human methods can produce measurable results within galactic institutions. The Advanced Officer Training Program accepts only the most promising candidates, and Jilox earns his place through demonstrated improvement rather than family connections or political influence. The transition occurs with formal ceremony, yet personal significance. Marcus presents the recommendation documents with the same professional respect he would show any capable cadet. This normalization of the relationship demonstrates that transformation has reached completion. Jilox now stands as an equal worthy of advancement. Advanced training becomes the natural reward for successful psychological transformation rather than a negotiated outcome. The progression feels organic because the groundwork has been thoroughly prepared through months of consistent mentoring and capability building. This advancement creates ripple effects beyond the immediate relationship. Other cadets begin seeking human perspectives on their own career development. Instructors reconsider how they identify and nurture talent across species lines. The entire academy culture shifts toward more inclusive, merit-based advancement. The recommendation process demonstrates that human rigor paired with strategic kindness can forge genuine meritocracy. Jilox's improvement isn't manufactured but cultivated through careful guidance and high expectations. His capabilities develop naturally within a structured, supportive environment. This endorsement marks the final phase of the mentorship strategy. Marcus transitions from active guide to respected colleague, his role complete now that Jilox operates independently at an advanced level. The relationship evolves from teacher-student to professional peers with shared experiences. The advancement validates human approaches to interspecies relations on an institutional level. The Academy formally recognizes the effectiveness of Marcus's methods by accepting his recommendation and supporting Jilox's progression. This institutional buy-in suggests broader applications across galactic diplomatic and military structures. This moment completes the circle that began with poisoning and ends with professional endorsement. The transformation demonstrates that human conflict resolution can create positive outcomes from negative beginnings. Strategic mercy proves more effective than any punitive response could have been. The recommendation stands as tangible proof that building up rivals can serve everyone's interests. Xilox becomes more valuable to his species and the galactic community through this development. Human intervention creates capability where destruction would have created only loss. Now consider the ripple effects spreading through galactic institutions. The incident between Marcus and Xilox becomes required study material in xenopsychology courses everywhere. Students analyze the case not as anomaly but as blueprint for understanding human behavioral patterns. This story fundamentally alters how species approach conflict resolution. Where previous models emphasized dominance or avoidance, the human example shows transformation as viable third path. Educational institutions incorporate these psychological strategies into standard curricula, recognizing their effectiveness. You see paradigm shifts occurring across multiple disciplines. Military academies revise leadership training to include mentorship techniques. Diplomatic corps study strategic mercy as negotiation tool. Even medical schools examine the psychological dimensions of healing after conflict. Vexar's decision to transfer for human psychology studies reflects the widespread impact. His comment about studying from safe distance captures the mixture of fascination and caution that permeates galactic academic circles. Scholars recognize they're dealing with something both powerful and imperfectly understood. The story generates optimism about humanity's potential role in galactic relations. Rather than feared predator, humans emerge as strategic partners capable of elevating rivals through calculated compassion. This perspective shifts interspecies dynamics from competition to potential collaboration. Galactic education systems undergo their most significant change in generations. Textbooks are rewritten to include human psychological approaches alongside traditional methods. Classroom discussions focus on case studies like this one, examining how conflict can become opportunity. The resolution transforms human approaches from feared anomalies to studied phenomena. Researchers analyze Marcus's methods with academic rigor rather than defensive anxiety. They recognize that human behavior follows patterns that can be understood and even anticipated. These ripple effects extend far beyond military education. Corporate training programs adopt mentorship strategies based on human models. Political institutes study how strategic kindness might diffuse long-standing conflicts. The approach influences everything from parenting guides to organizational management. The incident serves as practical framework for analyzing human behavior in high-stakes situations. Students learn to recognize patterns of persistence predation in psychological contexts. They understand that human mercy often serves strategic purposes beyond surface appearances. This educational shift ensures future generations approach interspecies relations with different expectations. The fear of human unpredictability gives way to comprehension of methodological consistency. What seemed random or emotional reveals itself as calculated and purposeful. The story's influence permeates multiple aspects of galactic society. Entertainment media feature plots about human mentors transforming adversaries. Business leaders apply strategic mercy in corporate negotiations. Even personal relationship guides incorporate principles observed in this case study. The transition from fear to understanding represents profound cultural evolution. Where aliens once prepared for human violence, they now study human psychology. This shift creates more stable foundations for interspecies cooperation across all sectors of galactic society. The classroom incident becomes legendary example of how single events can change entire fields of study. Academic conferences dedicate tracks to human conflict resolution methods. Research grants focus on understanding the biological and cultural foundations of these approaches. This widespread adoption demonstrates the practical value of human methods. The strategies prove effective across species boundaries and situational contexts. What began as one human's response to poisoning becomes galactic standard for transformational conflict resolution. The ripple effects continue expanding through institutions and cultures. Each new application reveals additional layers of complexity and effectiveness. The story maintains its relevance because it represents fundamental truths about power, compassion, and transformation. Marcus keeps the poisoned water container as a physical reminder of the incident. This simple container held enough toxin to eliminate multiple soldiers, yet it becomes something entirely different in his possession. The object transforms from assassination tool to teaching aid, from weapon to symbol. This memento represents symbolic warfare at its most sophisticated. The container stands for both the initial harm attempted and the transformation achieved. It embodies the complete story in one physical object that both participants can see and touch. Research confirms that tangible reminders reinforce psychological lessons better than abstract concepts ever could. The bottle serves as constant reference point for their unusual relationship. It reminds Geolox of his failed attempt and second chance. It reminds Marcus of his strategic choice to build rather than break. This shared reference object grounds their interactions in the reality of what occurred and what followed. Marcus uses the container as teaching tool during their sessions. He references it when discussing conflict resolution strategies or psychological principles. The physical presence of the object makes the lessons more immediate and memorable than theoretical discussions could achieve. The container gains legendary status within academy circles. Cadets hear about the poisoned bottle that became symbol of human psychological strategy. Instructors reference it when teaching about unconventional conflict resolution methods. The object transcends its original purpose through the story attached to it. This transformation from murder weapon to teaching symbol demonstrates human creativity in repurposing negative experiences. We take what could have been only destruction and create something educational from it. The container becomes proof that even hostile actions can become opportunities for growth. The dual meaning of the object reflects the complexity of human approaches to conflict. It represents both the danger that existed and the safety that followed. It stands for both the threat made and the mercy shown. This duality makes the object psychologically rich and educationally valuable. The memento reinforces accountability while acknowledging transformation. Geolox cannot forget what he attempted, yet he also cannot ignore the positive outcomes that followed. The container keeps both truths present simultaneously, preventing simplistic interpretations of the events. Marcus's decision to keep rather than destroy the container signals his approach to conflict. He doesn't erase evidence of hostility, but incorporates it into the new relationship framework. This demonstrates that human resolution methods acknowledge past harms while building future possibilities. The container becomes part of Academy lore because it represents something rare in galactic relations. Most species either destroy enemies or avoid them after conflicts. Humans sometimes choose the more difficult path of transformation, and this object symbolizes that choice perfectly. Physical objects often carry more psychological weight than memories alone. The container's tangible presence makes the lessons concrete rather than abstract. Students who see it understand that the story isn't theoretical, but actually occurred between real individuals. This symbol now represents broader implications of human mercy across galactic society. Other species study the container's story as example of strategic kindness in action. They learn that human approaches to conflict often involve repurposing negative energy into positive outcomes. The transition from poison vessel to teaching tool demonstrates human resilience in practice. We take what could harm us and turn it into something that educates and improves. This capacity for transformation defines much of human psychological strategy and interspecies relations. The container remains as evidence that second chances can produce remarkable results. Its continued presence reinforces that growth often comes from unlikely beginnings. The object stands as silent witness to the power of strategic mercy over simple retaliation. This memento ultimately becomes more valuable as symbol than it ever was as weapon. Its educational worth exceeds its original destructive potential. The transformation of the container mirrors the transformation of the relationship it represents. What strategic advantage do humans actually gain by choosing forgiveness over retaliation? The answer completely redefines what superiority means in interspecies relations. Humans don't just survive attacks. We transform them into opportunities through strategic thinking and calculated mercy. This approach creates entirely new futures for both humans and former adversaries. Where other species see endpoints in conflict, we see beginnings for partnership. The tension comes from watching destruction become construction, watching threats become assets through deliberate psychological engagement. Long-term strategic thinking provides advantages that immediate retaliation cannot match. Quick vengeance might satisfy emotional needs but often creates power vacuums or lasting resentments. Sustainable solutions require patience and the vision to see beyond immediate circumstances to future possibilities. Human resilience manifests not merely through survival but through transformation capability. We take what could destroy us and reshape it into something beneficial. This creative approach to conflict demonstrates that true strength lies in building rather than breaking, in creating value rather than eliminating threats. This redefinition of superiority emphasizes creativity and mercy over simple dominance. Power isn't about who can inflict the most damage, but about who can create the most value from challenging situations. The galaxy begins to understand that human persistence, predation applies to psychological and social domains as effectively as physical ones. Strategic advantage makes humans unpredictable and formidable in interspecies relations. Other species struggle to anticipate responses that don't follow established conflict patterns. Our capacity to choose mercy when violence seems inevitable creates uncertainty that works to our advantage. True human superiority lies in transformation capacity rather than destruction capability. We measure strength by what we can build from adversity, not by what we can eliminate. This perspective shift changes how the galaxy perceives and interacts with humanity across all contexts. This redefined resilience now influences how other species approach human interactions. They study our methods rather than simply fearing our potential for violence. They recognize that human responses often serve multiple strategic purposes beyond surface appearances. The approach demonstrates that mercy can function as sophisticated psychological strategy. When wielded with precision, forgiveness creates obligations and dependencies that force never could achieve. It builds networks of cooperation where destruction would create only isolation and resentment. Human relationships become more formidable because they don't end with conflict resolution. Our persistence in maintaining engagement, even after hostility, creates ongoing influence that other species find both impressive and unsettling. This endurance capability represents our evolutionary advantage applied to social contexts. The galaxy learns that human friendship often involves strategic long-term investment. What appears as simple kindness frequently serves deeper purposes of relationship building and influence cultivation. This comprehension changes how aliens interpret human behavior across diplomatic, commercial, and personal interactions. This transformed understanding creates more stable foundations for interspecies cooperation. By recognizing human strategic patterns, other species can engage more effectively rather than reacting with confusion or fear. The relationship dynamics become more predictable through comprehension of underlying methodologies. The redefinition of resilience ultimately benefits all species involved. Human approaches to conflict resolution create opportunities for mutual growth rather than zero-sum outcomes. This perspective shift opens possibilities for collaboration that traditional power dynamics cannot achieve. Strategic mercy proves more effective than dominance in creating lasting change. The transformations achieved through patient engagement outlast those imposed through force or threat. This effectiveness demonstrates the practical value of human approaches to conflict and relationship building. This redefined resilience now serves as model for galactic relations moving forward. The story of Marcus and Zilox becomes blueprint for how species can transform adversaries into partners through strategic engagement and calculated compassion. How does human mercy become more dangerous than violence? The answer lies in our dual-edged nature that the galaxy finds so unnerving. Humans demonstrate equal capacity for calculated violence and strategic mercy, often choosing between these approaches based on cold assessment rather than emotional impulse. This fundamental duality makes us uniquely unpredictable in interspecies interactions. The poisoned water bottle perfectly symbolizes this double nature. It functions as both potential weapon and teaching tool, representing harm and transformation simultaneously. This object embodies how human power manifests through strategic choice rather than singular approach. We assess situations and deploy the method that serves long-term objectives, whether that involves confrontation or compassion. Research indicates that species with dual capabilities create deeper psychological impact than those with single approaches. The uncertainty about human intentions generates more anxiety than predictable hostility would. Other species struggle to anticipate our responses because we operate outside standard galactic conflict models. This unpredictability becomes our strategic advantage in negotiations and confrontations. Human power lies in the conscious choice between violence and mercy, based on strategic calculation. Marcus demonstrates this when he selects mentorship over retaliation after the poisoning attempt. His decision isn't driven by emotion but by careful consideration of long-term outcomes. This calculated approach proves more effective than any knee-jerk reaction could be. The galaxy learns that human mercy can be as strategically deployed as human violence. Forgiveness becomes weaponized when applied with precision and purpose. What appears as weakness reveals itself as sophisticated psychological strategy upon closer examination. This comprehension forces other species to reevaluate their assumptions about human nature and capabilities. This dual-edged capability now defines how the galaxy perceives and interacts with humanity. Diplomatic approaches shift to account for our unpredictable nature. Military strategies incorporate contingency plans for both violent and merciful human responses. Educational systems teach students to recognize the signs of strategic calculation behind apparent emotional reactions. The tension comes from not knowing which aspect humans will deploy in any given situation. Will they choose confrontation or compassion, retaliation or reconciliation? This uncertainty creates psychological pressure that straightforward aggression never could. Other species find themselves constantly reassessing their interactions with humans, looking for clues about our intentions. Human power manifests through this strategic flexibility. We adapt our approach based on circumstances, objectives, and long-term considerations. This adaptability makes us more effective in conflict resolution and relationship building. Where other species might default to established patterns, humans calculate the optimal response for each unique situation. The resolution becomes clear as observers recognize the pattern behind human behavior. Our actions follow strategic logic rather than emotional impulses. This comprehension allows for more effective interspecies interactions. Once the underlying methodology becomes understood, the galaxy learns to analyze human behavior through the lens of strategic choice rather than apparent randomness. This dual capability transforms human reputation from feared predators to strategic partners. Our capacity for both violence and mercy makes us valuable allies and formidable adversaries. The balance between these extremes creates opportunities for cooperation that single-approach species cannot achieve. This complexity becomes our greatest strength in galactic relations. The transition occurs as other species incorporate this understanding into their interactions with humanity. They learn to anticipate strategic thinking behind apparent emotional responses. They recognize that human mercy often serves larger purposes beyond surface appearances. This comprehension leads to more productive relationships across species boundaries. Human power ultimately lies in our capacity to choose, rather than in any single capability. The freedom to deploy violence or mercy as the situation demands creates strategic advantages that rigid approaches cannot match. This flexibility represents our most distinctive characteristic in the galactic community. What happens when mercy becomes strategic weaponry? The answer reshapes interspecies relations across the galactic community. Human resilience and creativity, channeled through calculated compassion, redefine what true superiority means in universal terms. This approach creates collaboration opportunities that dominance-based strategies cannot achieve, forging connections where separation once existed. Research confirms that mercy-based strategies build stronger long-term alliances than violence-driven approaches. Marcus's experiment demonstrates that elevating rivals generates more stability than eliminating them. By choosing mentorship over retaliation, he creates durable bonds that punishment could never establish. This methodology offers an optimistic vision for interspecies relations, founded on mutual improvement rather than mutual destruction. The galaxy begins to perceive human superiority as creative force rather than destructive power. This redefinition opens unprecedented possibilities for cooperative development across species boundaries. Where traditional power dynamics created winners and losers, human approaches create partners and collaborators. This shift influences everything from diplomatic negotiations to scientific research initiatives. Strategic mercy forges a new galactic future based on transformation rather than domination. The focus moves from controlling others to developing capabilities together. This approach recognizes that true strength lies in building collective capacity, rather than demonstrating individual power. The results prove more sustainable and beneficial for all involved parties. This new perspective now influences broader galactic politics and relationships. Diplomatic Corps incorporates strategic mercy into negotiation frameworks. Military strategists study transformation-based conflict resolution. Educational systems emphasize capability development over threat elimination. The ripple effects touch every aspect of interspecies interaction. Humanity demonstrates that power can manifest through creation rather than destruction. Our willingness to invest in others' development becomes our most valuable export to the galactic community. This approach challenges established assumptions about conflict and resolution, offering alternative pathways to stability and progress. The transition occurs through practical demonstration, rather than theoretical argument. Marcus's success with Xylox provides tangible evidence that transformation works where domination fails. Other species observe the results and adapt their own approaches accordingly. The galactic community learns through example rather than instruction. This methodology proves particularly effective in resolving long-standing conflicts between species. The focus on mutual improvement creates common ground where previous attempts at resolution created only temporary ceasefires. The approach builds foundations for lasting peace through shared development and growth. Human strategic mercy becomes template for interspecies cooperation across multiple domains. Scientific collaborations increase as species recognize the benefits of shared knowledge and capability development. Economic partnerships form around mutual improvement rather than exploitation. Cultural exchanges focus on learning and growth rather than conversion or assimilation. The galactic future shifts from competition to collaboration through this redefined approach to power. Species discover that helping others succeed ultimately benefits everyone involved. This realization creates more stable and productive relationships across all sectors of galactic society. The persistence predation psychology that once applied only to physical hunting now transforms social and diplomatic engagements. Human endurance and strategic patience create lasting change where quick fixes would fail. This long-term perspective proves essential for building the trust required for genuine cooperation. The resolution becomes clear as more species adopt transformation-based approaches to conflict. The galaxy moves toward a future where mercy and strategic kindness serve as primary tools for building relationships. This shift represents the most significant change in interspecies relations in generations, creating opportunities for collective advancement that previous models could never achieve. How does this single incident reshape how the galaxy sees humanity? The story of Marcus and Xylox becomes legendary almost immediately. It spreads beyond military circles into academic settings, diplomatic discussions, and cultural exchanges. This narrative demonstrates human psychological strategy in its most effective form, transforming how species interpret our actions and motivations. The legacy fundamentally shifts human perception from feared predators to strategic partners. Where other species once anticipated violence, they now recognize sophisticated calculation. This change occurs because the story provides concrete evidence that human mercy serves strategic purposes beyond emotional impulses. The tension between expected violence and demonstrated compassion creates powerful cognitive shift across galactic society. Research confirms that legendary incidents reshape species perception more effectively than any propaganda campaign. Personal stories with clear outcomes influence opinions more profoundly than abstract arguments or statistical reports. The Marcus and Xylox narrative provides tangible example that educators can reference and analysts can study. Its power lies in its simplicity and demonstrable results. The calculated kindness approach becomes standard model for interspecies conflict resolution. Diplomatic Corps adopt its principles, military academies incorporate its strategies, and cultural exchange programs study its methods. This widespread adoption demonstrates the practical value of human approaches to difficult situations. The methodology proves effective across various contexts and species boundaries. Humanity's reputation transforms from violent unpredictability to strategic reliability through this demonstrated mercy. Other species learn that human actions follow discernible patterns rooted in long-term thinking. This predictability creates more stable foundations for interaction, reducing anxiety and misunderstanding in interspecies relations. The shift represents significant improvement in galactic cooperation. This legacy ensures that future interactions begin with different expectations and possibilities. New encounters start with assumption of strategic purpose rather than random aggression. This change in initial perspective creates more productive openings for dialogue and collaboration. The poisoned water bottle becomes symbol of transformed relationships rather than attempted murder, representing how negative beginnings can lead to positive outcomes. The resolution establishes human legacy as one of strategic mercy and transformational capability. We become known for our ability to create value from conflict situations through careful engagement and psychological insight. This reputation opens doors for human involvement in galactic affairs that might otherwise remain closed due to suspicion or fear. The transformed legacy now influences how new generations approach interspecies relations. Young diplomats study the case as example of effective conflict resolution. Military cadets analyze it for strategic insights. Cultural scholars examine it for understanding human psychology. This multidisciplinary interest ensures the story's continued relevance across galactic society. The narrative's endurance comes from its demonstration of universal principles. It shows that transformation often proves more effective than elimination, that building capabilities creates more value than demonstrating power, and that strategic patience outweighs immediate reaction. These truths resonate across species lines and situational contexts. This legacy represents humanity's most valuable contribution to galactic relations thus far. It provides template for turning adversaries into partners through psychological engagement, rather than physical confrontation. The approach demonstrates that true strength lies in creative problem-solving, rather than destructive capability. The story continues to evolve as new generations interpret and apply its lessons. Each retelling adds layers of understanding about human nature and interspecies dynamics. The poisoned water bottle remains as physical reminder that even hostile actions can become foundations for positive change when approached with strategic mercy and transformational intent. Human superiority shows itself not through power over others, but through strategic transformation of adversaries into allies. Even assassination attempts can become opportunities when we choose compassion over retaliation. That poisoned water bottle stands as lasting proof that our greatest strength lies in reshaping conflict through calculated kindness. Subscribe for more stories about human resilience changing galactic relationships. Our creative approaches to conflict resolution continue to demonstrate that building up others often achieves more than tearing them down. The future looks brighter when we choose transformation.